Welcome to Tribal Economic Development, a podcast highlighting best practices for creating, implementing, and sustaining plans that lead to success in Indian country. We are Waséyabek, an economic development firm dedicated to creating a sustainable path forward for the Nottawasepi Huron Band of the Potawatomi. In our first 7 years of operation, we've grown from 0 revenue and 3 employees to more than $150 million in revenue and a team of more than 650. Along the way, we've learned many valuable lessons. Here, we'll share those lessons with you. And now, our hosts, Deidre Mitchell, Waséyabek President and CEO, and Erica Weiss, Assistant General Counsel.
Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Tribal Economic Development. I am one of your hosts, Erica Weiss, here with my co-host, Deidre Mitchell. Hi, Deidre. How are you?
I'm really good. Good afternoon. Happy to be here. Excited. We've been trying to put this together for a while. So, yeah.
Yeah. Who do we have with us today?
Well, beside me is Lauren Davis, and she is the president of the West Michigan region for Huntington National Bank, and a relationship of ours for business and also a friend. So really happy to have you here today, Lauren.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and excited to have some conversation with you around this exciting topic of external partners.
Yeah, same.
And then next to me is Dave Kinsman. He leads our middle market team here in West Michigan and is an integral part of the key relationship that we have with Waséyabek.
Yes.
Yeah, and as Lauren indicated, we are talking about external partners today, specifically vetting external partners, which for a tribal economic development company is very important to the continued success of that company or the success of that company for many reasons, mainly because a lot of what we do, we can't do alone in a vacuum. So we're going to talk a little bit today about how you go about finding external partners and what you do as you kind of vet them and run through that due diligence with them. Deidre, you kind of hinted at it already, but why is Huntington here to talk about this with us?
Huntington is the banking partner with us. And when we were small, we ran under the Casinos and the Tribes banking relationship. And then as we developed, we wanted our own relationship. So we actually went out and did an RFP of several banks in the area. And we wanted somebody that could really partner with us and somebody that could really be a community partner, understand some of the differences with tribes. And Huntington was the front runner. So we've had a great relationship.
What are some of the things that were in that RFP to find the type of external partner that Waséyabek was looking for?
We wanted them to be in the community. We wanted to have a very personal relationship with our business partners. One thing that was really important for us too is that we were viewed independently. So our economic development arm was viewed independently. A lot of partners will want to reach back to the tribe for guarantees and that kind of thing. And we're a very well-run company with a very strong balance sheet, strong financials. So it was important to us that we were viewed as standing on our own 2 feet and what that relationship would look like.
Now, Lauren, I know you weren't there when Huntington originally responded to Waséyabek's RFP, but can you tell us a little bit, now that you're in the position that you're in, how the bank necessarily goes about evaluating a partner like Waséyabek when they're looking at wanting to be that banking partner for them?
Yeah. So going back to community partner, we're looking for core companies in our local communities. So what's really important to us at Huntington is that we have a community that is profitable and successful. And if the business organizations are not successful and thriving, then the bank's not going to thrive. Mm-hmm. So again, looking for those companies that have strong leaders, that's very important to us and always has been, because leading a company and understanding what success looks like is very important. But then, like you said, the strong balance sheet that a company may provide as we're looking at due diligence. We're also looking at the structure of the company, We're looking at things like their growth trajectory and their projections. So all of those things are important as we're making what we call a credit decision on a company. But when we're proposing, we start with who are the core organizations in our community that are thriving and that if with our capital can be successful. But not only capital, but we bring along the fact that we have over 1,100 employees in our region alone. And so that economic development that you bring is so important to our success. So if you're not successful, we're not successful.
And another comment on that, not only are we community partners together, but both of our companies have some shared values about making the community in which we operate successful too. And that's wherever we're at. And I know that stands true for Huntington as well.
You kind of started to touch on it, Deidre, but what were some of the things, RFP process, obviously you generally tend to get a lot of proposals in response to that. What are some of those core values that stuck out with Huntington that made you decide that they were the best partner for Waséyabek at the time?
Well, I think really how we define partner, and I'll give you an example of that. We have had quite a bit of acquisition activity, and Huntington comes alongside of us during that due diligence process and helps us think through things. And if we're considering how we want to structure debt and that kind of thing, they're really a partner with us in that thought process. So many things like that, how we even structure our bank products, how we structure our bank products is important to, the future of the company and longevity in our goals and what success looks like.
Well, and I think from our perspective as a financial service provider, our goal is to provide you advice and guidance. And when Dave and his team are working with clients, they're trying to look out into the future. You're running your business or you're working with the tribe and you're focused on your particular industry. And you don't realize that in the financial services industry, we're working with a lot of different partners. And so, like you said, Erica, earlier, we have the expertise in the tribal space, but we also have seen customers and companies make tough decisions that maybe didn't turn out well. And so how do we give that advice to our clients? Or, hey, here's a partner that you should be talking to that implemented a software system. So you can get through the bumps and hurdles that maybe they had to go through that you won't need to go through because you're going to make that connection. So the networking that we're able to do to help is another way than just providing the advice and guidance, but maybe connecting you with others, other legal counsel at companies, other presidents at companies that are going through their same struggles that have nothing to do with banking. And so we feel like that's the partnership that differentiates Huntington from maybe some of the others that were on the RFP. I don't know, Dave, do you have anything you want to add?
Yeah, I do. I think that the way Waséyabek approaches all of their operations and their activity is very, very thoughtful. And that goes all the way back to the original RFP, which aligns with the Huntington approach. We want to take our time and make sure we understand what the goals are of our customers and to just take a step back, make sure we are asking the right questions and aligning ourselves with those goals. And so I know that was a big part of the original RFP and one of the things that helped make us successful.
And I one other thing too, Lauren, it's not just you, and Dave, it's not just you. And you mentioned there's a whole team behind you, and we have connections throughout our organization with people connected throughout your organization as well. So even internally, you've made those introductions to our CFO or someone within the Huntington National Bank, and that have been really valuable. So
yeah, and I love that you brought up, Dave, that underlying or that original RFP process and really understanding the goals. I think it's really important, not just in a banking relationship, but in vetting external partners altogether, is that it's really easy for an external partner to come in and say, I'm great at this. I've got experience in this. I can do X, Y, and Z. But I think it's really important when we talk next about red flags, green flags, when it comes to vetting external partners is when they come in for that initial conversation, right? Are they more focused on what can we do for you, or what are you trying to do? And then how can I help you achieve those goals? And I think that's really important, whether it's banking or otherwise. I mean, we've experienced that, Deidre, with legal counsel, accounting firms. I think that's something that we look for is not just don't just tick off all of your accomplishments. Tell me actually in the context of our goals, what that means to work with you. And that can't happen without that really organic conversation and relationship building and truly understanding what it is that the tribal entity is looking to do there and why that relationship is even needed.
Mhm.
You outlined that really well. I wish that I could have you teach some people in our team. But that's exactly our goal when we're starting a relationship is to make sure we understand what you're trying to achieve and how can we align with you. And that plays out through the entirety of the relationship all the way up into some of the most recent transactions that we've helped Waséyabek with, even as most recently last week.
Yeah.
So there were some things that the bank noticed and we could bring to the attention of the Waséyabek team, their legal team, because we're aligned with you and we want to achieve the same goals. And I think that that's been one of the real shining stars of the relationship over the last few years.
Yeah, and you bring up acquisition. I want to talk about that for just a second because I know, Lauren, you were talking about how we're here to do more than just give you money or hold your money, right? And so, Dave, I know you're kind of more on the front lines when it comes to actually lending and helping with acquisitions. Talk to me a little bit about that partnership when it comes to acquisitions. Like Lauren mentioned, you're more than just that. So what does that look like?
Well, I think it starts with really understanding your customers as a whole, in your case, Waséyabek, and how they approach each of those transactions. And I said earlier, they approach it very thoughtfully. And because of that, we talk about, there's a term used in banking, having skin in the game. And Waséyabek approaches every transaction with a lot of skin in the game. That is really meaningful for the bank because when we know that our customers approach those acquisitions in that thoughtful way, then that allows us to kind of trust in their judgment and know that they're just as engaged and just as concerned that these acquisitions will go well. So we talk about structure, and right from the beginning, we were able to kind of outline an agreed upon structure that would work for everybody because the bank knew that Waséyabek was going to be very thoughtful and have skin in the game. Again, it's been a winning recipe for us all the way up to the last transaction where we know what the goal is. We know how they're going to approach it. We can trust our customer, trust the way that they're doing all of their due diligence and the way that they plan to approach that transaction. And when it gets down to the 11th hour and we're putting the deal together, there's trust in all the partners and we're all working together.
And we've talked on past podcasts how it's different if we're considering owning a company in perpetuity rather than we're managing a company to sell it in 3 to 5 years. And neither one of those are wrong approaches. It just takes a different mindset. And our bank has to understand kind of where we're coming from and what we're doing to, again, define success. So, and Huntington does a really good job of that. And it's not only at the RFP process, but we meet regularly and just catch up on what's going on and what's going on in your world, what's going on in our world, and where there might be synergies. And it's really, really been good.
Well, and I think with a financial partner, you really have to have a lot of trust. We have to trust that your skin in the game and your leadership team is going to execute. And you have to trust that we're going to be there when you need us at all times. And sometimes that means saying, hey, maybe this isn't the time for you to make that decision. And we have to have the relationship that we trust each other, that we're not looking to stand in the way of a transaction, but maybe there's things from our perspective that we need to share with you. So sharing what's happening in the industry, because again, Erica, we were just talking about this, you're focused on your business or your tribe or what the businesses are that you're buying, but you're not maybe as aware of everything that's happening economically. And so not that you're not connected into the economy. I'm just saying that you're not day to day like we are.
Yeah, you have a different insight. You're like you mentioned, you have your hand in a lot of different industries where we are. Here are our silos, and this is with the industries within which we operate.
Yes. And then we're, we have teams that continue to stay on like, what are tariffs going to mean and what's the impact? And we're looking at that in our portfolios. So we're also looking at things like if interest rates go down, how does that impact clients? If interest rates stay stagnant, what does that look like? And what's the impact to our customers? So we're kind of always doing that inside testing on our portfolios. And so we've got that guidance that we can provide to customers.
That's so helpful because we just don't have the time necessarily to dig deep enough into some of that stuff. Like you said, we know we're, reading the news and we're experiencing things, but to really get into it and understand how it affects things upstream and downstream, it's really valuable information.
That's that value add that any external partner can add. Yes, you are our banking partner, but it's so much more than that. We have a team of attorneys that we work with externally that also, it may have nothing to do with what legal work we have them doing right now, but they're constantly thinking of us and saying, oh, this is a topic or a podcast or a news article or something that just came out, a regulation that just came out that I think is going to have an impact on their business. So I may not be providing a ton of context of what that is, but to share that with us, to let us know that you're continually keeping us front of mind to share information like that is really, you look around, right? You throw a rock, you're going to hit a bank, an accounting firm, or a law firm, right? But it's that kind of stuff that really then sets you apart and has that value add back to us as your customer that is just invaluable and part of the reason, I'm sure, why you decided long ago to go with Huntington.
Yeah. And the partnership goes both ways too, because our structure is unusual. And so there are other tribes looking for that same level of service. And we're able to talk very candidly and very openly and very positively about our relationship with Huntington. And happy to do that because there are some partners that are better than others. So we'd like to direct people in the right direction.
Well, we always appreciate the referral because that's the best compliment we can get is when a customer says, this was a great experience and I want someone else that I know to experience that. I'll tell you that Dave and his team do a fantastic job of making sure that they stay connected regularly to clients. So it's important that we do that because if we're just helping you with the transaction and then putting that on the shelf and not connecting with you on a regular basis, we're not going to understand what your goals and objectives are ongoing. So that's important as well. And then, we were just talking earlier that we often, both of us have openings where, hey, we may have an opening and you can help us fill an opening with somebody that you know. So sharing that talent around West Michigan is, I think, super important. And we're looking for talented individuals as well as you are. And so our collective network makes a difference too. So again, we don't think of it as just banking and providing you that capital. It's a full scope of a relationship. And if we're good at what we do, we're thinking of your business as a business owner. That's the skin we have in the game. We want Huntington to be successful, but it can't be successful, like I said in the beginning, if you're not successful and the community is not successful.
Being active in the community, we're all of us up here are active in the community. In fact, Erica and I are on a board together for a separate organization. So that's all part of it, right? We're engaged in our community and we want to see it succeed. And we each have different vested interests there with our organizations.
I've run into Lauren at many a Rise game. Go Rise, by the way.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit, Deirdre, about when a tribal organization is vetting an external partner. What would you say are some of the green flags to look for, whether it's in a proposal, in a face-to-face or initial conversation or interview? What are some things that our listeners can take away that, hey, I'm sitting down with this banker or this law firm or this accounting firm. What should I be looking for when I'm looking to find that partner?
Curiosity and the relationship with the individuals is really important, but having that curiosity about what we truly do. Also, having examples of things that you say I've done and, people have benefited or customers had benefited. Really, what are those examples and how could they relate to something that we're doing? And then, again, you having a broader perspective on the market, you can hear what we're doing and then say, have you thought about this? So having that curiosity, having a broader view and having just an honest conversation back and forth is, and connecting with the person. Everybody wants to work with somebody they like and they trust, and that's important.
The trust is an important piece because as for any partner, in our example, the bank, we need to know that potential customer is opening their books for us to really understand their organization, and that does require trust. And so in order for the partner, whether it's a bank, a CPA, or an attorney, they need that potential client to also trust them and share openly with what they're looking to do.
Yeah. And I should say that all of it should start with, is it a viable, reputable company and all that? That's like kind of the foundational stuff. But then when you're really getting to the RFP process, it becomes more personal.
Yep.
So to that point, Deidre, Lauren, and Dave, what level of, Huntington has been working in Indian country for a while now. How much education did you need to provide or get from other people working within Indian country to feel comfortable being in Indian country and lending to tribes, lending to tribal organizations?
That really is a key question. It does take time. It is different. The legal structure is different. And we had to reach out externally and internally to make sure we fully vetted the opportunity and were comfortable with it. So we did lean on legal counsel externally for some of that advice. We also have a group within Huntington that focuses on Native American financial services, and they're familiar with it as well. So the combination of external and internal expertise helped us structure that original RFP and be the winning one.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I was going to say when you were talking about green flags is expertise in this area. So a lot of banks can do manufacturing. We have some service expertise, but this is a specialized area. So you do want a bank that has some expertise if you're going to make that decision. Same with a law firm or CPA firm. It is specialized. So you're going to want that expertise. And I'm glad Dave brought that up, that we do have that.
Yeah, I think that's important. That's not to say for any external partners that are out there listening, that's not to say if you don't have experience in Indian country, you can't break into Indian country. That's not what I want to suggest. But if you truly want to work in Indian country, there does need to be a certain level of education. And so if you are just getting into Indian country as an external service provider, what are you doing to do that? How are you educating your people, yourselves, whether it's external, internal? And then how are you conveying that expertise or that education to the people that you're trying to then work with, right?
Another green flag that I think of as we were talking was expertise around, or not expertise, but like team. So if Dave is your only point of contact and crisis for any reason happens, you don't want to have just one point of contact with whoever your service provider is. So having a team of people around that understand and can answer questions and be available. People are allowed to take PTO, I hope. And so you want to make sure that there's other people on the team that are familiar with the relationship and can answer questions, but up and down your organization of whoever you're partnering with, because you want senior leadership to know and be connected to you, but you also need others on the team that can do the day-to-day that if there is something that you need. So I think that's really
That's certainly a cultural fit aspect of it too, right? We at Waséyabek are a very collaborative group. And so I think would be difficult for us to have an external service provider that we only have one contact person with. I can't think of any of our external service providers except for the ones that are just them in their own companies, right?
I think we can boil this all down to like just really knowing what you're asking for. And that helps you, helps us to get really clear on that going into the RFP process. And if it isn't, having those continued conversations to kind of hammer it out before you, you know, hold hands and get married.
And part of that is really prioritizing what you need, right? Deidre, you were very clear that in a banking relationship, we were not going to go back and ask Nottawasapi for a guarantee, right? But unless you put that right up front and center, you could start holding hands and get married and then figure out, oh, shoot, this is a hard stop for us. And yet this is what you're asking us. And so there's some lack of communication there up front. So I think really prioritizing out of the gate what it is, kind of what are your non-negotiables that you're entering into and being able to find a partner that matches what you're willing to negotiate on and what you're not.
Yeah. And you want these partnerships to last for a long time. So you don't want to set up your partner too to say, oh, it looks this way. And they go off on a path and think the relationship's going to look like this or the parameters are like this. And then it's, by the way, oh, we're married, but I really wanted this. You know, that's just not gonna work. And so there are both sides of that equation that need to understand the other so we can all get aligned and we can all, you know, set mutual goals and define success.
Over time, too, I think that the relationship can grow and can deepen. And one of the ways, at least speaking on behalf of the bank, is when we have a customer that is very thankful for the work that we're doing and expresses that thanks. And the Waséyabek team does that for us. So internally, when we're trying to make something happen at the 11th hour, if they know it's for a Waséyabek deal, they're willing to go that extra mile because they know it'll be appreciated. And that goes a long ways for probably any partner. When you know that the work you're doing is being appreciated, then it makes you want to work just a little bit harder.
That really is that cultural fit, right? I think that phrase is thrown around a lot. What does that truly mean? I think we've talked about some of that today, right? Team aspect, collaboration, the appreciation, and just how that relationship is a two-way street. You're not just sending stuff to us, we're sending it back sometimes too. So I think when you define what you're looking for in a partner, it's really, like we talked about, that what are your priorities from a business relationship standpoint, but also what are you looking for from a cultural fit? That doesn't just go with employees. It certainly extends to external partners as well.
Well, and I think as you build the relationship, like Dave was sharing, where we've seen the greatest success is where we've got a lot of transparency. So I think a lot of times, especially with financial partners, and I'm not sure why this is, but I'm afraid to tell my bank that I am having a difficult quarter, or I'm having a challenging, acquisition, the way it's integrating. And instead of being really open and honest, looking at if there's covenants in place that we need to modify, being proactive, so it doesn't seem like we missed what was running on it or what was happening in the business. And so being transparent with your financial provider, your legal advisor, your CPA is super important that they're integrated. So those quarterly conversations are important where you're saying, okay, this is our goals going into the future, but here's maybe some challenges that we're having right now and the impact that it may have on an agreement that we have in place. That's really important.
We talked about green flags, and in the context of that, I think some red flags got brought up. But Deidre, any red flags as people are sitting down and having an initial conversation or reviewing proposals to look for with external partners?
One of my big ones is a list of capabilities without examples of success or execution. I mean, you just should be able, and maybe it wasn't exactly the same. I can't ask everybody to have experienced everything coming in into the relationship, but you should be able to say, this is where we contributed and it ended up here in a positive way, or there was this problem when we learned from it. It doesn't always have to also be positive, but to just have somebody come in and say, we can do everything perfectly, don't worry, it'll be fine. Not a good look.
I think one I would say too is talking about that team aspect. I know I've been involved in my previous life in private practice, involved in proposals where you go in for that interview then and you've got this team that presents really well. You've got, a diverse team of age and people and cultures and everything. And one person talks the whole time. Right? So perfect example of that's great. You're saying you're a team and you're collaborative and working, but you're not letting anyone else that you've brought. Like, this is apparent that there are people, or makes it seem like you've brought these people to try and check some boxes. And yet here you sit, just one of you talking, and no one else opens their mouth the whole time they're here.
Yeah. And another basic is just they're non-responsive to the request for a proposal. They don't really answer the questions in there. They just kind of give you their, standard reply, I guess.
We were talking about earlier, their chat GPT response.
Yes. Right. And then, again, if they're not involved in their community, they don't have a common set of values, it's probably just at some point not going to be aligned enough to have that long-term relationship.
I think forward looking is important when you're looking at partners, ones that are looking forward for you, that are what's coming, what might happen, alternate scenarios to help you kind of go through the challenging, tumultuous times that we're in, to say, what should I do? Somebody who's trying to give you those examples of forward thinking is, I think, really important. And that's something that we pride ourselves on, is looking forward for our customers. Because again, you're in the weeds of the business every day.
Yeah.
And we're your partner that's supposed to be thinking out into the future for you, or trying to provide that insight and guidance.
And you have a lot of institutional knowledge to bring to the table also from your team, but also from your organization. You've seen a lot of things that we just maybe haven't experienced yet. So
yeah, absolutely. What do you like most about working in Indian country as a service provider and banking partner?
I think I've touched on it a little bit, but for me, what I've experienced is that thoughtful approach to each transaction.
Mhm.
It can sometimes be frustrating that it goes a little slow.
I was just
And we're used to working at a little bit faster pace, but again, that's one of the differences.
Mhm.
And understanding the difference and why that's important. And rather than getting frustrated, which sometimes can be tempting to do, to take a step back and kind of like hold hands and say, okay, what's slowing this down? How can we be helpful?
Mhm.
What are some of the challenges? What are you worried about? This is what we see.
Mhm.
What do you see? And that's allowed us to kind of, using that picture again, kind of hold hands and cross the finish line. That's probably one of the things I've noticed is a little bit slower, but it's because it's just a more thoughtful approach to really every step in every transaction.
Mhm. And a heck of a lot of approvals.
A lot of
A
approvals.
lot of approval levels.
A lot of signatures.
But I think that's a great reason why you start engaging your external service providers early on when it comes to acquisitions or divestitures, or you've got a pending or a threatened litigation or something, anything that really could affect the business. That's why it's important to engage service providers early, not only from we want them to have the full picture of what's going on, but also because we know it takes a little bit longer to do things when we're in Indian country. So anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would say partnership. When I think of Indian country, I think of, you come together and you really think about when you're going to connect with someone that you're looking out for each other, and it's not just a transaction. And so that's something that we value and that you value as well. And so that makes a difference. If there's something that happens, a mistake is made, not that it isn't still an issue, we're going to address it, but that doesn't break things down because we're just transactional. It's truly that there's a relationship built here. And so that's what's super meaningful to us. So thank you.
Yeah.
We really appreciate you.
Yeah. Can I answer that question?
Absolutely.
Also? I think when we vet partners, we kind of ruthlessly vet them in the beginning. And for me, it's really important that I can then go, okay, I know who these people are. I know who this organization is. And like you said, then fully trust and full transparency and all of that. And also know that I understand what the organization is about and the leadership. And, we're going to have transition in people sometimes, but I know the direction, the true north isn't going to change. And that's a big deal because we depend on you. So thank you.
I want to talk a little bit now. I feel like sometimes there is some stigma in Indian country about Huntington's my bank. You go find a different one. That law firm is my lawyer. You go find a different one. Talk to me a little bit about representing multiple tribal entities and how kind of those relationships work when we kind of see that stigma out in Indian country sometimes.
Okay.
You want me to tackle that one?
Go ahead.
Yeah, that has been one of the things that I've learned is Indian country is actually very small. Everybody knows everybody. In banking in general, in Huntington specifically, we take confidentiality extremely seriously. So if, for example, we might have one banker working on one relationship, there's a really good chance we'll have a different banker on a different relationship, just to create a little bit more of a separation. I think that tends to work well for everybody. But, it isn't unique to Indian country. There's a lot of competing businesses within a region, within West Michigan. It could be a tool and die business. It could be logistics. And we, as banks, we quite often work with businesses within that industry that are competitors, but they would never know it because we are so strict with our confidentiality, and we would never allow that to interfere in any way. So that is how we treat it. I understand in Indian country, they don't always believe that because it is such a small world. I hope they don't feel that way. We would love to work with more tribes out there, but we also want to be respectful of their wishes, and we certainly would do that.
And I can't emphasize enough the confidentiality. A colleague would lose their job if they shared that type of confidential information. So, for example, when you were kind of like, don't share names, we wouldn't.
Yeah.
The only way you would know if someone banks with us is if they tell you.
Yeah,
If they
right.
tell you, that's their business, but you would never have us share that. We take that strict confidentiality very seriously,
Mhm.
and it could lead to termination if that was the case and we found out that happened with a colleague. So
Mhm.
we take it very seriously.
Mhm.
Yes, we share when we have good business partners because I think there are a lot of charlatans running around Indian country, I'm
Mhm.
sad to say, that make a lot of promises and don't take good care
Mhm.
of their customers, whether they're, and in this case, Indian country. And we have some nuances and we have some differences. And I hate it when I see those things exploited. So, yes, when we have good business partners, we yell loudly from the rooftops, please look at these people. They're great people. So,
Mhm. And you really have been amazing. I mean, Dave, like you said, we just closed a transaction last week, and I don't know that we could have gotten through it without how awesome your team was. So thank you for that. And that's
you just
not an
made my day.
anomaly. So
Made my day.
that's
Thank you.
That's a normal thing. So any closing thoughts, Dave, on kind of external partners in Indian country?
External partners, I guess it just kind of thinking broadly about this conversation as people are listening would be to take your time. There's probably usually no rush. Make sure you're finding a good cultural alignment. There's probably not enough that's been said about just the people you're interacting with. Do you feel like they're people you enjoy? Are they genuine? Do you just like the interaction? Do your homework, like Deidre said. Make sure you're checking references. Make sure they have examples. Have they done this before? And in our case, I think it really helps that we have this local team that can deliver to our clients, but we have this broad depth of resources that Huntington has from a national perspective. So we've been talking today all about the local team delivering for you, but behind us is this other team with this level of expertise that we can bring in. So I guess that would be some of my big broad thoughts.
Thank you. Lauren?
Yeah, I would just say the relationship is very important. You have to feel the connection, but you also have to feel like trust is so important. And
Yeah,
these
we've used
key
that word
partners-
a lot today.
Yeah, these are key partners. When you're making tough decisions, they're the ones at the table with you. And so it's not nothing against a phone company, but it's not who your phone provider is. This is really serious conversation. And so you really need to be able to feel like you trust whoever that is, and that they're looking out for your best interests, not necessarily their best interests. And I can't emphasize enough Dave's point of our local delivery model is I truthfully believe is a differentiator, because you're working with us locally. We're in the same community. We're all contributing to this community, but yet we've got this huge organization behind us that can provide the capital you might need, the services or products that you might need, and those capabilities. So to me, I think it all goes down to that trusted relationship. And so if you just don't feel it, maybe be thoughtful and step back and think about what might be next.
Yeah.
I would add that we've talked about lots of signatures and all that. If you run across a teaming partner that isn't willing to kind of paper your relationship to begin with, because trust is really important, but there needs to be some foundational whole understandings between, if you have a partner that comes to you and says, let's just do this, we'll work it out later. Please don't do that. Please do not do that. There are some basics you all need to agree on, and you develop the relationship from there.
Yeah. Thank you all. And thank you all for tuning in with us today. If you enjoyed this episode of Tribal Economic Development, please make sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Additionally, if you have a question for us or a topic you'd like us to explore in the future, we'd invite you to head to our webpage. That's waséyabek.com/podcast and leave us a comment and any feedback that you may have for us. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks.